We got audio, we have screen, we have video. All right, chat's open, and here we go. So for this live stream, first things first, ZBrush. That's what we're going to be using today. So on my YouTube channel, there's an intro to ZBrush new and updated underneath the ZBrush new what's playlist section. I don't think we're going to be doing anything terribly advanced today, so but there's resources there if you need it. And then also on my ArtStation page, ZBrush What's New. There's a whole bunch of ZBrush stuff in here you can check out from various releases, and that's in the, again, that ZBrush What's New section. So right off the top, resources if you need them. The other resource, I've got a Miro board here, and we'll be going through and basically doing a likeness of Walton Goggins, my favorite character in Hateful Eight, and one of my most favorite characters in Django, and probably my favorite Fallout character. So we'll be going through and using some of those references, and then also making a Vault-Tec suit. Well, I guess it's just a jumpsuit. I don't know that it's Vault-Tec. Vault jumpsuit, let's say. So let's get started. If you, let's see. Yep. Okay. Sorry. Okay, I'm going to move this because it always distracts me. Okay. Also, close, close, close. All right, so in ZBrush, if you want to make a human, you can start with a sphere. Just go in here and say, I want to start with a sphere. Go into edit mode, make polymesh 3D, turn on your floor temporarily so we know we're Z forward, Y up, and then tap X to go into X symmetry. And then you can just start moving this thing around. This could be your rib cage. This could be, whatever. Start making your character. Now, once you start moving these verts around, it's going to get a little stretchy. So in that case, sometimes it's fun to go in here to Geometry, Dynamesh. There it is. And then just click Dynamesh. If it's a little too much, the more geometry you have, the more wobbly things are going to be. So, you can drop that resolution down, control drag to re-Dynamesh. Now, if you move the resolution down and you control drag and nothing happens, that's because no verts have changed. So you just go in here and you can smooth a little bit of it, control drag, and then it'll update. And then, BSH is another one, which is like snake hook. There's snake cactus. There's a bunch of snake brushes in there. And these are fun to use, not only just to move geometry around, but also go up here to Sculptors Pro, just toggle that on, activate that with backslash, it looks like. And then as I move things around, it'll tessellate on the fly. So you can go, let's pull out some arms, let's pull out some legs, pull out a head, inflate, boom, perfect. Now let's compare. Is that close? Kind of hard to tell because I can't, one thing I could do is I could put this back behind here, and then as I'm sculpting, I can go up here. Actually, can you see this? Just off screen, right here, I'm going to move the screen down just a little bit. Right here, there's a see-through slider. If I pull that see-through slider to the right, I can just have that on. So while I'm sculpting, I can be sculpting and looking at reference at the same time. That's a little, and it's fine for certain uses. In my case, I'm going to see if I can make something better. So what I'm going to do is I want to match reference, right? So I'm going to go in here to Texture, Import. And let me just grab this down here. We're going to go to my folder where my stuff is. Oh boy, which would be Recording Fallout. Reference. And then I've got some Cooper. Really, I'm not too concerned about the body, but, let's say I'm going to go in here. I'm going to grab Cooper's full body just as reference, select that, and then hit the plus sign. And now we have a full body ref in here as a spotlight image. So I can scale the spotlight image. I can turn down the opacity on the spotlight image. I can hit Z to go out of that mode and then be able to manipulate and move the geometry around behind. So now I can go through here. Now, as soon as I move the camera and then, or I hit Shift Z and I turn that off and I want to sculpt without it, and then I turn it back on by hitting Z, that again goes to widget mode, hit Z again. So Shift Z and then Z to bring it back, and then Shift Z to turn it off. So you just cycle through widget mode with Z and then Shift Z to turn it off and on. Now, one thing I do also want to do is store my camera position. So one easy way to do that is Movie, timeline show. You can just tap here in your timeline. So now when I move this around, I can use my arrow keys and that goes through and selects. So if I want to measure the arm out, I can rotate to the right here. Here's a fun trick. If you hold down shift and start rotating and then let go of shift, it'll actually rotate on the camera view. So if you're forward and you want to just be like, hey, I want to match the arm angle basically. Sorry, we're looking at this weirdo guy, but it's fine. Hold down shift and then let go of shift. It'll do that kind of rotation. So now I can kind of match up the arm here, let's say. And then I can put another dot. So now I can go between these two. I can go straight on view and then arm side view. And that'll allow me to have like an A pose. So anyway, that's one way you can set up a simple, we're going to use something a little bit fancier in just a second, but if we're just doing a simple body, that's one way we can start. Another way you can start, there's a million ways to start things, but there's also the male Z project and the female Z project in here. So we can just go, oops, let's hit the comma key and to go in here, go into project, and then we'll just load up the male. So we'll go ahead and load this up, and just like what we were doing earlier, same deal. I'm going to turn off the floor, turn off perspective. I already know what Z forward is. And then we can just line up a human behind this, and then we can just match this up. So we've already got the landmarks dialed in. I don't have to go through and sculpt a bunch of volumes. It's just easy, right? Now, this isn't going to mean that I can use my previously saved cameras. So again, movie, timeline, show. Let me see here. Weird. Movie timeline show. So again, we'll go in here and reset this, and then we'll hit this. Now, if ZBrush crashes, I'm gonna lose my spotlight position and my timeline. But if you go in here to texture, save spotlight, you can just save the spotlight out as a ZSL, a spotlight file, and then same thing for your timeline. You can go in here to movie timeline, save, and save your timeline. You can also go in here to file, save as, and it'll save your timeline in your camera views. So that's basically how you can start. You could also use Z-spheres, go through here and make a little Z-sphere body and start sculpting. And you can also bring in a base mesh, which is what I'm going to do because I'm going to be taking advantage of some facial animation eventually. Not on this channel, but on my channel. If you want to know a little more about that, let me see, YouTube home. I think I've already given you all that. Yeah, YouTube. There you go. If you scroll down, here's the ZBrush What's New playlist, and you can view all and kind of cycle through here. There's a bunch of ZBrush stuff. Down here is the a character creator playlist, and it's actually not in there, but there is I'm going to be using this character base here, and that's in this video. This video will go through and explain like why this character base is cool. All it is geometry. You can use it or not. It's up to you. But if you're interested, check that video out. And that's what I would be loading up just to kind of, again, take advantage of some facial animation later and rigging and stuff like that. So again, it's just a character base. You can download your own character base, start with your own, or make your own character. So if I go in here to load tool on my recording here, CC base, Z tool. So in the CC base, there's a female, male, tune, and neutral. I'm just going to start with the neutral male Z tool. Just load that up. And it's already set up. It's got teeth and tongue and eye occlusion and a base body. So we'll go ahead and again drag that out. Hit F to frame. And here we go. So just like we were doing earlier, I'm going to line this up so that his feet and head match. Now you're going to notice, like many Hollywood actors, it's got a pretty large head, which is cool. So again, here's the body lined up. We're going to drag this dot off of there and then put another new dot in there. And then again, for the arm length, I'm going to hold down shift and start. Let's tap on the right shoulder and then hold down shift and then let go of shift. And we'll just rotate this arm down. Oops. Shift, let go of shift. There we go. Doop. There we go. We can just move that down. And now we can start dialing in this suit. So we'll put another dot in there. The other thing we want to do is, it's kind of if we're doing a full body, I'm not overly concerned about the head being the perfect size, but we kind of probably want to match it a little bit, right? So to move the head along with all this other stuff, the eyeballs and the teeth, we're going to hold down, hey Rodolfo, how's it going? Yes, hopefully it'll be a decent one. So we're gonna hold down Control, and we're going here to mask lasso. We've got the base body selected. I'm gonna mask the head, or the neck is, because we just want to expand the head, and then I'm gonna Control Tap to kind of blur that out. If you're so inclined, you could also do BT brush transpose, and there's a bunch of transpose options in here. You can also just hit W on your keyboard. That goes into transpose mode, and then with this dot on this little gizmo 3D, you have a gizmo that you can drag out, and while you're dragging, it'll leave you a soft fall off. So now we can scale the head up like that. Same thing with the arms. You can just drag down the arm and you'll get this soft fall off. Now, if it's too soft, you can go to BTC, which is Transpose Classic, and that'll get you that little bit of a harsher fall off as well. But for our purposes, we're going to go here to Mask Lasso, Control Alt, mask the head out, Control Tap the body to kind of, let's just grab the head. I don't think his neck gets big, so we'll just grab right under the ear. Control Tap a couple times to blur that transition out, Control Tap to invert it, or Control Alt drag, and that'll go ahead and invert that selection, and then Control Tap to blur it out. Now, I need to put this right in the middle of my character, so I'm going to hit this Unmask Mesh Center when I hit W, and then hit this little reset, hold down Alt and hit reset. I'm going to put that right at the base here. So now, if I scale up or down, it'll scale. I should mention this too. If you want to work in symmetry, just tap X on your keyboard. That's going to turn on activate symmetry, and by default it's in the X direction, which if we turn on our floor, X is left and right. However, if we are, we want to scale these hands up, let's say, and then Control Tap, Control Alt, Control Tap, W, hold down Alt, and you can just click on here, and you can kind of hold down Alt and reposition. If we start scaling these hands out, it's going to start doing this. In those instances, since we're not right down the middle, go up here to LSIM, turn off dynamic, and then now you can just scale along that local axis. Anyway, head, unmask, blur, W, unmask mesh center, reset. Now you're going to see when I did that, it's offset, it's not down the middle, so turn off X symmetry by tapping X, then go to unmask mesh center, then tap X again. Position this here, scale it up. Now the problem is, if we scale this up and down, the eyelashes will go along with it, but if I turn off solo, you're going to see all the other stuff isn't going with it. So let's go in here to move multiple, this little 3 stacker here, and by default, I think everything is already selected or selectable. If it's not, just Control drag to deselect everything, and then Control Shift drag over what you want to select, and it will grab everything there. And then now I can scale the head up and the eyes up. So again, Shift Z to bring our reference back, arrow keys to kind of put it back in there, and then we'll go ahead and scale his head up to match Walton's bigger head. So now we've got the body and the head, and there you go. That's basically how I ended up doing the body. Now, everything else, I think the suit's pretty simple. So let's start with the likeness, I guess, unless anybody has any reason I shouldn't. Quiet in the chat today, so I'm going to guess, do what you want, Pav, and I will. So we have the base body here. We've got everything going, so now I want to match his face. What I could do is I could go in here to texture. Here's the thing. While this is activated, this thing here, I could actually say, hey, you know what? I'm going to put the body over here. Then I'm going to go in here to texture, import, and I'm going to grab, let's see, recording, reference, head reference. We've got, I've got some Google image head reference, so I'll grab one of those. I've got some from the show that are pretty neutral. You want to get a nice profile in there. I've got one from the show in there, and then maybe a 3/4. So I'll go ahead and hit open, and while this is activated, it will go ahead and import these images. So then we can go through here. You can also go through here and you can hit this. What is this? Make them all the same size. Make them all proportional based on something. Make them proportional based on their pixel dimensions, all of this stuff. So we'll make them all the same size. And then we'll go through here and we'll say, okay, I want the body here. I want the front head here. I want the 3/4 head, here. And this isn't how I'm going to do this. I'm just kind of showing you. The profile of the head over here. I'm starting to run out of space, but you get the idea. And then maybe another sanity check front head here. So this is one way you could do it. And then you could say, okay, again, these things don't mean anything anymore, so I can just drag them out of here, and then we'll reset up this one. So we're not scaling the object. We're just using our camera navigation, either right click or, you know, just panning around and just kind of moving these into place. So we'll say you go here. And then for this one, we'll go through and we'll say you here, go here. Now, if you do happen to know the focal length you're working at, you can have perspective turned on, go in here to draw. You have this button right here, which is universal perspective. So if you probably want that on, and then you can go through here with like a 35 millimeter, 28, 50, etc. Now, if I go to full body, these things make a bit of difference, and you can also grab the focal length here. As soon as you go into the head though, it doesn't make too much of a difference here. So I don't know, use whatever ideally you could get the metadata from the photograph and match it. But anyway, so we'll go through here and, make sure that you're rotating the head and, matching up the features. And once you get that dialed in, you can set this here, and then you go through and you can set this up. So now set, and then here, set, etc. You get the idea, right? There you go, boom. And again, if, his head's tilted or anything like that, just hold down shift and start rotating, and then let go of shift, and then it'll go camera based. So you can kind of just dial that in, drag that off. There you go. And you, at any point while you're going through here and you're like, oh, you know what? This one could be set a little better. We're at this little slider thing is at that one. So you're at this dot here. Go through here, make your minor adjustments, drag that off, re-put that dot in there, and then you're good to go. And then from here, it's just moving verts around. Oh, we got some questions. Absolutely. No problem, Mr. White. How do you delete points keyframes from the timeline? Yeah, just go in here and you can just drag it off. So just grab it and pull. It'll drag it off, and then go in here and tap, and it'll make a new one. Yeah, I'm here. Yeah, this Walton is so good at playing despicable characters that you kind of love. And I guess Fallout's no exception. Okay, so here is all this. Although he gets to play kind of both in this one, so I don't know. This was awesome role for him. I love this guy. So now body pieces here, and then again just going through here and just moving stuff around. If you're going to notice that this has the eyelashes built in, so usually it also has polygroup, so I can just control shift click. Let me shift Z to turn this off. So for this, if I have eyelashes in the way, just control shift click this, and then I can move stuff around without the eyelashes, or I can keep the eyelashes on. It doesn't really matter. I can move those around. All this other stuff, like the eye occlusion and the tear line, that can easily be fixed in Character Creator later, so that I don't generally worry about. Base eye and stuff I try to keep generally okay, but again, all of these things can be fixed at any other point. So this is one way you could do it. Now, what I do is I'm going to go through here. I'm going to delete all of these. That's just a little X in there. There is a plugin. Well, let's talk about this too. Under Draw, I don't use it, but it's there. Cameras. So you can store cameras in here, save camera to camera list, and then you can cycle through the cameras. You know what? I know a guy who probably did a video on this. Let's see. Store camera. FBX camera image plane import. ZBrush universal camera. I feel like I did. Store cam. That would be. Camera thumbnail. Cam view and thumbnail. I feel like it was a robot body. Am I crazy? It would be draw menu, store cam, select camera. Let me just do camera. Well, just when I thought YouTube was going to give me what I needed, here's another thing we can do. Because I remember what playlist it was in, I think. Let me go down here. Videos, sorry, playlists. It was a ZBrush 2021. I remember the thumbnail. Create and store image planes for matching concepts to your model. Was that it? Yeah, it was this one. You know what? I'm going to do this live. Edit video. I'm going to put, because if I'm looking for something, I'm going to be looking in here going, hey, what in the heck does store cam do? Store cam, or, okay, store camera image planes. Save. Whew. Okay, sorry about that. It's this one. Copy, paste. Oops, I've already got something in there. There's that, whatever I was talking about earlier. And then there's that one. So here's how you can use store camera. I go in here. I have a plugin, awesome plugin called Ref Switcher. Kind of the same deal. So what you can do is you can go in here, click on the default project, and you can select previous project. I've got 2 in there. And then you can go in, or you can go in here to add. You can add a project. You know, it'll give it a name, and then you can go through here and you can say, okay, texture, you know, add this again, and then add it to Spotlight, and then set this up here. And then once you've got this set, you can hit Save View. It'll save the view for this one image. And then you can bring in another texture, load it up, match your model, obviously. Before you hit Save View, you want to load in the texture, put this in here, hit Save View, load in another texture. You can get rid of this one. It'll remember it, so you can say, hey, get rid of this one. Bring in another one. Put it in here. Line up your image, hit Save View, and then if you're ever, you know, again, you want to make like a micro adjustment, just go in here and hit Save View again. It'll save over the previous view. So now I've already done that, so I don't need to do that again. So I'm going to say, go in here, I'm going to go to Cooper, and I'm going to say Load View, and I need to go into edit mode here and then say, there we go. Obviously, since I didn't I started with a slightly different version of this base mesh that I've already dialed in, so it's not going to be lined up nicely. So let me go ahead and load that up, by the way. Let me see. Get something a little closer here. Sorry, big file. Didn't realize it was so big. Oh, I know why. I've got scan data reference in there. I also did transfer scan data. We can talk about that. It's not really done in ZBrush, so I can mention it. Although you could use ZWrap. So let me see. There we go. So let's turn, actually let's go in here also to preferences, quick save. I'm going to max these out because we're just going to be demoing, so I don't really care too much about that. And then here, base body. There you go. Now you can kind of see. So while we're working with the base body, you know, you want to start low and dial in your primary forms, right? And then you just want to go up 1, dial in your secondary forms, go up 1 more, dial in primary and secondary forms. That's about as, when I'm doing a likeness, again, this is just me, so take it with a grain of salt, but usually I don't go past subdivision level 3 for most of the work. The vast majority of the work is done in subdivision level 2 and subdivision level 3, and it's just a couple hours worth of loading up views, matching the view here. Let's go ahead and you can again hit Save View if you want to save that view. Going through here and going like this. So move this over. You can go through and you can be like, okay, is this close enough? Moving the lips around, moving the head around, moving the ears around. Another thing you can do is you can go in here and you can store this view so that, because if I go through here and I say load view, it's going to move the camera and the model back. If for whatever reason I want to say, you know what, I want to move my reference over here and max out that opacity, and then I want to move this over here. You can actually just drag that off, click in here. So now if you do move the camera, you can snap it back. And then you can use this method to have your reference right next to you and start sculpting. In order to sculpt, if you're just using the move brush, I think it'll work. But if you want to, use a standard brush, I think you got to go in here to brush. samples, there's a spotlight projection. So if you have spotlight projection on, it's not going to let you, again, it'll let you use your move brush, but like the standard brush isn't going to work because it wants to have an image, the spotlight image in front so that you can sculpt through it. If you turn that off, then you're free to do whatever you want, spotlight or not. So again, now we can use our arrow keys, snap this back, and now I go through here and like, again, all you're really doing is pulling verts around to kind of match features. So if we go back down here, you can also assign hotkeys to these. So I can do Alt-1, Alt-2. Let's go ahead and move these down. And it looks like I don't know, whatever reason, the document I had is just slightly off. But also, underneath, it's also storing all of these settings. So if you're changing the focal length on every single one of these, it goes through and it looks and says, oh, perspective's turned on. This is at the focal length, whatever. The model is in this position here, and it'll just match. So I'm going to skip 05, 06. Oh, there we go. 7. So just before clothing, we'll skip ahead a little bit. But that's it. That's basically it. So, you know, I can go show you like the front view, 3/4 view, and profile view, just to kind of dial in his stuff. Make our own little Walton. Yeah. Let's see. Streaming female anatomy modeling tutorial. If I was doing a female, we could start here, female ZPR, and all your landmarks are kind of dialed in. Let's see. So again, is that really a 3? No way. Okay, there we go. Like that doesn't seem right. I guess it is. Okay. Okay, so like I said, Alt-1, we can match it up. Again, you can go through here and you can say, hey, let's maximize our reference here. Just turn that opacity all the way up. Over here, move it to the side, move this to the side, drag this in, and now we can, do any sculpting I want and then snap back to that view. Or I can just hit Alt-1 and go back to this view and turn this down. So Alt-1, Alt-2, Alt-3, oops, Alt-4, and then I can switch a project here because I ran out. So here's Cooper. We can go Alt-1, Alt-2, Alt-3, Alt-4, Alt-5, Alt-6, Alt-7, Alt-8, Alt-9, Alt-0. There you go. So there he is, all matched up. So we got, again, our little Mr. Goggins there. Sorry, bro. But here it is. Now we need to make a Vault-Tec suit. So now that you got your likeness dialed in, let's talk Vault-Tec suit, jumpsuit. So let's go in here to texture. We've already got that texture loaded in from earlier. We're going to hit the plus sign. Any other images we can get rid of. And again, we're just going to have this kind of sitting here. We've got our person. We're going to line up the body. Because again, I want to know where the boots cut off. I want to know where the arms, and I want to know where stuff ends up, right? So on this one here, I'm going to say, take this base body. We're going to duplicate it off. Oh, we should probably maybe talk about that. Yeah. Shoot. Give me a second. So that was YouTube, and it's called 1024 Scan Store. Here, I'm just going to give you the video. It's not this exact video, but you should be able to, again, I haven't done a video on this, but basically it's this video right here. If I can open it, there we go. And this is how I basically exported the base mesh for the scan data, the base mesh for my, the base mesh for my scan data, the sculpt. And when I go to my channel, we can talk about this more in depth. Because I'm on the Pixelogic channel now, so I'm kind of staying in Pixelogic. There is a ZWrap plugin you can use that basically will take the base mesh of one mesh and snap it to another. You can also do it in ZBrush if you're so inclined. If we go in here to ZBrush 2021, what's new, which is the monster playlist. Let's talk about that for just a second. Here's the 2021 update. And I think if we just, oh, wait, no. It's this one. This one. Yeah, I got some fat beats. So here we're going through and we're using cloth simulation to snap arbitrary geometry to another base mesh, right? So here's an entire whole, the Nick Zuccarello base mesh, and I'm using claw simulation to just take those verts and kind of whoop, what's that word mean? Snap, move into place those verts onto my sculpt, right? So you can use this, you can use topology brush and stuff like that to go through and make geometry. So if you want to go through that playlist, it's a big one, but down in here it'll talk all about claw simulation and snapping and base meshes and stuff like that. So I'll go ahead and link y'all to that. Sons of Anarchy, I haven't seen that, but I bet he's good. He's good in everything. Yeah. Cool. Oh, thank you, Noonan Gates. So here we have this all set up. And again, I don't really, at this point, I'm just doing the Vault-Tec suit. So I've already done the likeness here. He's already dialed in. So again, I don't need any of these here. I can hit F to frame, and we're just going to kind of line this up again one more time just for the body. We're going to start making this suit. So I'm going to put this in here. I'm going to tap, and then we've duplicated the body off, and I'm going to hold down Shift and turn off the eyeball. That'll turn off the eyeball for everything else. The CC base body, I don't need a ton of geometry on here. Let's say we go up to subdivision level 4, delete higher, delete lower. It's just, I just need geo. The other thing too is I want to maintain this A pose, I think. Do I maintain an A pose? I think I transition to a relaxed A pose. Sorry. Just because it's a little more comfortable to, this is something you would need Character Creator for, is just to go relaxed A pose, go Z it back over, it'll move your verts into place. It's not difficult. It's in my playlists to walk you through it. But yeah, this is actually a little bit more comfortable to sculpt with. So instead of that A pose, this is a little closer. Oh, one thing I should have mentioned, while doing a likeness, a lot of times it's useful to match the lighting. So if you do want to match lighting, instead of just going in here and using a matte cap, so this matte cap has the lighting built in. If I go in here to my light menu and I want to move this around, the lights don't move, right? But if I go through here and I use any of these standard materials in here, I think I stuck with basic material too. And then going through, and of course you can make this a little darker if you want with the color selector over here, or you can go into the material properties here, modifiers, and mess around with any of this stuff. But this will allow you to match that reference. So if I do have this one, let's go back to Cooper Row 2, Alt 1, Alt 2, Alt 3. These are all pretty standard, just straight on lighting. But like I said, if you did need to match your lighting, that's one way you can go through and do it, is just have your light menu available, yoink, and then just move this dot around, and oops, if you tap, it sends the light around back, and then you can do like a, I don't know, a light from this side if you want. But yeah, this will just make sure that your volumes, tap, give me it back. There we go. I don't know, just gives you a little more control to see your volumes a little bit better. So anyway, something like that, right? Okay, now we've talked about all that stuff. Another thing, Z, delete, texture, select, add, scale, opacity. Another thing is I'm not overly concerned about perspective turned on at this view. I'm just taking this data and putting it on another piece of data. So at this point, I'm probably not working in perspective anymore. So we're going to go ahead and save this view so I can use my arrow keys to snap back. And like I said before, I'm going to tap on the right shoulder here, hold down Shift and start rotate. Hold down Shift, you know, like if you want to snap to a front view, you'd hold down Shift and snap. So do that, and then let go of Shift with your pen still held down on your tablet, and then that'll rotate on that camera view. And then we can move that over, boop, put another dot in there, and now I can get the arm in there and the body, and I can still maintain my A pose. CC base body, duplicate that off. We're going to go down here. Again, I don't need a ton of geometry, so subdivision level 4 is probably plenty. Hold down Shift, turn off the eyeball. We could even rename this suit. Now, if I'm making a suit, I'm going to go through here. I'm going to do a deformation, inflate a little bit. Yeah, so maybe we'd inflate this up a little bit. So just, oh, I'm working at a very large scale. Actually, I forgot to mention that. because I'm using that CC base body, really the only thing I do is go up here to dynamic and just double tap that dynamic to turn it off. If you're using IMMs, that can be problematic, but just sculpting organic stuff, it's fine. You could also go in here to Z plugin Scale Master and then do a ZBrush Scale Unify. That'll make everything ZBrush scale compatible, and then you can go down here and look, and your export settings will be changed. I'm just rolling with it and hitting dynamic. Sorry, it's still distracting myself. So it is what it is. So Shift Z, bring our reference back, use our arrow keys to snap, and then again, because my deformation, because I'm working at such a large scale, I'm going to have to really pull this. You won't have to do this, but I'm just going to go in here and just inflate that up just a little bit. I also might be inclined to just Dynamesh this result. Just start with Dynamesh and then just have the freedom to go through here and start slicing stuff up. We'll play it by ear. It does have polygroups on here, so instead of going down here and doing a deformation polish by feature, which will actually leave me a crease where my polygroups are, you could hit Control W, unmask, Control W, make it all one polygroup, and then you could do a polish by feature. It'll just treat everything as one polygroup, or you can just go in here to polish and drag that to the right. We can start smoothing out, you know, some of the detail. It's not going to be like a wet t-shirt suit that's going to stick to the body. It's going to be a little inflated. It's going to be a little softer. So that'll be a start. Now, if I want to transfer, we can go through here, like I was talking about before. I can sculpt through here. If we have brush, samples, spotlight projection turned on, you can go through here, and while you're sculpting, it will actually sculpt through here and pick that detail up. I don't necessarily want that. It's decent for some instances, but really all I want is the information. So I'm going to keep this turned off, and that will allow me to sculpt through but not pick up any detail from the image. Another thing I like to do is we'll switch. This is fine. I'm going to go over here to my standard brush. If you turn off Z-Add and turn on RGB, you can paint with the brush, or you can go in here to BPA. That is your paintbrush, and then that'll just be your standard brush with RGB turned on and Z-Add turned off. We can go through here and we can literally RGB intensity up at 100. We can go through here and we can paint the Vault-Tec suit onto the body. Now, while we're doing that, you're going to see I'm actually painting off his skin color. So if I go back here, let's go into solo mode here. Here's the body. Let's go up to Subdivision level 7. Give it a second because that is nearly 60 million polygons here. So here, if we turn the poly paint off, you'll see here's all the scan data, poor detail. There we go. So this is, again, just transfer from scan data. You can go through and use brushes and do this all manually yourself if you'd like. But, you know, like down here on the hands and stuff, this is all just transferred over. Whoa. All just transferred over from scan data. So that's how I got that detail on there. And along with that came the texture information. So here's all the texture detail that we can bake off later on and, I don't know, have a little fun with. So that's the base body with scan data. Now this one, again, it's been inflated. And while I'm painting, like I mentioned, while I'm painting, I can paint through here because spotlight projection is off, but now I actually want to paint the information and it's not letting me. So this is where I need to go. Have RGB turned on, turn spotlight projection back on, and then now when we paint through, we're not going to deform the model because we don't have Z-Add turned on, but we can go through here and we can paint our concept right on our body here. So just for this, I'm gonna hit C. You can tap C and sample the color, or you can drag from the color on here and it'll go ahead and sample the color. So we just pick a blue, Control Alt F, which is my hotkey for color fill object. And now we can go through here and standard brush and just be like, hey, this is where all of my landmarks need to be. The leg starts getting off kilter. So again, I can hold down Shift and then let go of Shift and just kind of rotate this from the camera view and then there we go. So that's where the boot line is going to be. And then again, we have our camera view set up for the arm here. Paint, paint, paint. And there we go. Now we have where the approximately where the glove line is going to be. So here's all of our landmarks for our Vault-Tec suit. Oh, another thing you can do is turn on X symmetry. So if it is I mean, it's not a symmetrical suit in the sense that these pieces are on the same side, but for the legs, you know, you could probably just pick one. You know, I actually get a little more light on this leg here. So you can have X symmetry turned on and just paint one leg, and it'll do a mirrored paint on the other side. There we go. Got a little suit going. It's when things are as dark as this, you can go in here to Z and then go in here to intensity and then drag this up and down. So if you're getting pure blacks that are going transparency, that's an easy way to clamp your dark values. Awesome, thank you. Clamp your darks, and then, but you can also go through here and lighten stuff up. But another thing I like to do, if it's getting too dark for sculpting, just go in here with white color selected, RGB intensity turned down, color fill object a couple times. That'll kind of knock it back. If I undo that, you can also go in here to render fade opacity. You can fade the opacity, but it also fades the opacity on your masks. So, and you also change the fade color if you want. So that's useful too, right? But for my money, color fill up. Sorry. Move this back. Color fill object a couple times just to knock it back. And now we have all of our landmarks and all the areas that we need to go start, you know, dividing this up. One thing I don't need is Control Shift. Let's go in here to, let's try knife curve. I'm going to go through here, and right along the wrist is where the glove is. So I'm going to go through. We're in solo mode. Geometry. Delete hidden. Control W. Mesh has layers. What layers do I have on here? Oh, bagel. Okay, so can't use a knife brush with layers. But we can go through here and be okay, right along the wrist, we're going to have a cut. And then right along the feet, we're going to have a cut. And then on the head here, we'll have a collar, but we won't need a head. Vault-Tec suit, and we're done. Great job, everybody. We'll pick it up again Thursday. Just kidding. We can do a little bit better than that. So here's the start of our Vault-Tec suit. Again, if I'm going to be like mushing this geometry together and, you know, sealing this up back here, we can immediately just go, make sure your polypaint's turned on before you do this. Go in here to Geometry, Dynamesh. If you drag from the resolution slider or from this picker, it will go through and pick the right resolution. Then you can just hit Dynamesh. I'm working at a very large scale, so that resolution is very low. There we go. So now we have, it's all Dynameshed here. We have X symmetry turned on. If you're sculpting and you don't want to mess with your poly paint, like if we're on our clay brush, RGB is on by default. So if you're going here with your clay brush and trying to fix something, it's going to paint. Just turn RGB off. There you go. And then we can hold down Shift, turn RGB off. Now you can smooth the model without smoothing your texture. Now, if you do want to, you can turn RGB on with Shift held down, and you can smooth out, like if you're doing like stylized gradient painting, you can smooth your poly paint as well. But in this case, we're just going to go through here, use our clay brush or your clay buildup and shift and smooth. And we're going to make this a little baggier. Again, it's not super skin tight. Let's go back to our reference here. You know, it's not super skin tight. We got some nice wrinkles in here. It is, he does mention it is a little tight, but it's just one of those things. So we got the suit here. We're going to hold down Shift to smooth, RGB off, Z add on. Yeah. So now we can go through here and, again, we're just basically softening this out. So, for the suit, we'll go ahead and we'll make this a little bit baggier. So we're going to go through here, hold down Shift, and you can also, now be careful while you're doing this. If we do have Dynamesh turned on and we turn this poly paint off, we can go to whatever material we want and, you know, start sculpting our wrinkles and start making this a little bit baggier and getting rid of this belly button and stuff like that. However, if you Dynamesh right now, Control drag to Dynamesh and then turn your poly paint back on, it's going to be gone. So if you are wanting to re-Dynamesh your object, make sure your poly paint's on. It'll transfer your poly paint here. So now we're basically, I'm going to have a little bit of reference up just so I can see it. But you can kind of see, if we go in here, I'm going to grab my damn standard brush, BDS. Comes with ZBrush. And then we can just start making reasonable decisions here. So also H-polish is another good one if you want to kind of get rid of some of this detail here, and basically going through here and saying, okay, there's a collar here. I'm just going to go in here with my damn standard brush. We're going to carve in a little bit. So it's going to kind of go to a V here. All this will be gone. We'll hold down, you can hold down Alt if you want to pull up to a ridge. You can let go of Alt if you want to push in. And then you can just start dialing in where your little cuts are going to go. So this, actually, the yellow part here, I think, I want to say it's a little bit raised. I don't really remember, but look at your reference. Go through here. You can hold down Alt and you can kind of pull up along here. You can also hold down Alt and then Shift and then let go of Shift and it'll snap straight back down. So let's go here and let's say here and then maybe down the middle too. You know, there's a big zipper that kind of goes down to a belt area here. So maybe we'll use our standard brush. Here we have X-symmetry turned on. And then it does kind of a scoop in here as well. So right about here, it kind of scoops in a little bit. And then this goes out. So we're just kind of just tracing on our image where the features will be for our suit here. And then of course over here, we got our glove will be right about here. And then our pants. And again, go in here and reapply your texture reference. But there's about where the boots will be. We'll make boots real quick. All of these little bobs and odds and ends, we can just kind of put in templates. This suit doesn't have subdivision history because it's just Dynamesh. So you can go in here to BI brush insert IMM primitives and grab a cube or something. But I have a custom IMM thing. Actually, you can have this if you want it. Let me get it to you real quick. IMM base primitives. Share, copy link, done. There you go. This IMM I like because it has just basic cube, mid, a bunch of different types of Z-spheres and cylinders, just stuff that I find useful while I'm doing stuff. One of those is just regular old cube, or a cube that has subdivisions across its axes. We'll just say cube. So I'm going to turn off X symmetry temporarily, and we're just going to drag out a cube here, and we're going to turn off move multiple and scale that down. And we're going to do, it automatically masks everything. I'm going to say split mask points, which is underneath your subtool split. Mask points or unmasked points doesn't really matter. And we'll go back to our suit, and then we can go through here. We'll drag out another cube here, and we'll scale this up and scale this out. Scale this down a little bit, and there we go. We got a placeholder for that one. Again, we'll say split mask points. Now, this cube over here is actually the same little cubes that you're going to use down here. So if you want, you can control drag out a copy, and we'll put that into place. I'm going to do another split mask points, put it in its own subtool here, because once I put that on that side, I can do a geometry, modify topology, mirror, and weld across the X. Make sure LSym is turned off. It'll mirror across the x-axis. We can turn X symmetry turned on. And now we have the same cube. So, you know, once you have this thing actually modeled, which we will in a bit, there we go. Good enough, right? So all of our major landmarks are starting to get dialed in. We've got some, we've eased this suit off the body a bit. Again, we'll turn X symmetry turned on, RGB turned off. So again, just kind of smooth some of those features out and then go through here and you can start sculpting in some of the details. Yeah, so yeah, look at your reference and then sculpt this in, and we'll put in some draping wrinkles in here. Now this, I don't particularly like sculpting cloth necessarily on a Dynamesh mesh. Number one, because I can't get the resolution low enough, but number two, it's just a little bit easier to go up and down in subdivisions. You can use some more tricks there. So this is where I'm just kind of blocking in major forms. I can hold down Shift, turn off poly paint, you know, and that's the start of my suit. Now, you know, get your reference as well, because you're going to go through here and you'll be like, okay, actually this yellow part is going to go up this way, and then it's going to cut in this way, and then the collar will be its own thing. There's actually a lapel we can model in. There's a wire. There is a wire that goes from here around to the back. It's not symmetrical though. And honestly, this type of thing I wouldn't even sculpt in. You can add this in later as an IMM brush, so I wouldn't worry about that. But there is, if you turn off X symmetry, there is like one cut that goes along here, And it goes like back around here or something like that. And then, I don't know. Let me look at my reference here. I already have this done, so I'm not overly concerned about nailing it. But yeah, somewhere along here. So use your reference and make the best decisions that you can. And there's probably a seam too. So, you know, let's say turn X-symmetry back on. Oh, and also along the side of the pants and the shirt here. Let me get a better view. Something like this. There's all the way up to the yellow. Right about in here, all the way down, is a slightly different material. And right along here, it's kind of got a little ribbed section in here. So you can kind of just start dialing that in. Again, we're going to, if you want to be really careful and sculpt this beautifully as one solid mesh, feel free. I'm not going to do that because that's a little rich for my blood. A little too difficult for me, but I'll show you how I kind of split this up into its own meshes and then bake to one mesh, basically. I know we'll talk about the baking part because that doesn't have anything to do with ZBrush, but oh, again, you know, the whole belt thing. If we turn our thing back on, here's the belt here, and then it kind of goes a little broader here, and then it goes, this just goes straight back, and then right off the belt X section here is like this, and then again, right to about here-ish, it's got those little striated sections. So you can see pretty quickly, again, it's not polished or anything, but we can get a pretty good idea in the round of what our stuff needs to be, you know. Also, for the boot, let's talk about that real quick. I'm going to borrow that base body again because we chopped it off for the bottom of the pants, but I do need his feet for this. I'm going to say CC base body, duplicate this off again. Here we go. Let's go down to subdivision level 3. Delete higher, delete lower on the duplicate. I want to leave my base body alone. We'll go ahead and call this boots. And once again, we've already, come on, caps lock isn't on. It's weird. Hold on. Preferences. Config, load UI. Give me a second. Sorry. Couldn't get my custom menu. Give me an excuse to get coffee. Oh, sorry, I'm behind. Cool, excellent. Yeah, that would be a fun project. The Vault-Tec bobblehead, that's a good one. The likeness, if you go back in this video, it'll tell you exactly how I set up the likeness. Should I move to Maya from 3D Studio Max for game character art? Yeah, sure. Been a while since I caught a stream, and wouldn't you know it? It's the You're too kind. Cool, excellent. Glad I was able to help you love ZBrush a little bit. Absolutely. Excellent. Glad to hear it. Glad the videos are helping. Why all the artists use Windows only? Haven't really felt the need to go Macintosh unless I'm playing Oregon Trail, in which case I'm all Mac on when it comes to Oregon Trail. How come I can learn everything that's related to character art so fast when it comes to hard surface and stuff that my mind just shuts off? That's kind of it kind of depends on how when I'm going to class and I'm like, oh, I really like this subject, and my mind doesn't shut off, and I learn stuff, and I'm intrigued, and I'm engaged with the subject matter. Boy, is it easy, right? If you're with subject matter you're really not engaged with, it's a lot harder to learn, right? So as far as like how to trick yourself into becoming engaged with that, sometimes it's just as simple as, especially when it comes to ZBrush, is finding the right workflow that clicks with you. Now, there's going to be purists out there who are going to be like, oh, you can't use ZBrush for hard surface, or if you do, you can't do it this way because that way is wrong. Those people are foolish, obviously. You can do whatever you want. Always consider the source, because usually the people who spout off the most are like hobbyist people. Why would you care about their opinion anyway? So here is a long list of hard surface stuff. And the reason I'm giving this to you is because you can go down and there's a lot of different artists who use ZBrush in different ways to get a hard surface result. It's not the only way to do the stuff. Maybe it's not the best way to do the stuff, but if it's a way that keeps you engaged and makes it hard surface fun for you to explore, then do it. And then that'll open up opportunities for you to maybe be like, hey, I can do some of this in ZBrush, the hard stuff, and then the easier stuff I can do in Max Maya Moto Blender, Cinema 4D, Houdini, and then maybe mix of those two, and then maybe also want to use Fusion 360 or Plasticity or Moy to do some of the stuff. Kiosk Masons are in here. They got there's, you know, they're in the brute force. So Jonas Racine is Kiosk Masons. Yeah, go through here and you can see, hey, I don't like box modeling with ZModeler just yet. My brain shuts off. Don't worry about it. Start here where you start sculpting and Z-remeshing and using brushes, and then you can get into rebuilding a little bit. Then you can get into ZModeler a little bit, and then over time, you'll have all the tools in your tool belt that will make hard surface approachable and easy and fun, and not a drag. Although sometimes, if you really want to, you can just be like, Google best way to make a hard surface thing in Blender with all the plugins, and then that's just your path, and then you just force yourself to just do it, you know. So okay, so what we'll do is actually a little bit of hard surface on this, I think. So we've got our suit blocked out. Let's say I went through and I did a little bit of a better job to get it pretty far, but now this is what I tend to do. Your mileage may vary. I find things a little difficult to work on if I want to go into like my clay tubes and start being like, okay, so this is going to be raised, and then down the middle here, if I hold down shift, I can like pull this up. There's a zipper. There's actually, I got a zipper line right here, and then down the middle I can go in my damn standard brush and hold down Alt. We can put a little line down the middle here. So in lieu of trying to get this all perfect and sculpted, I mean, I will do this for a bit. I'll spend a couple hours just kind of going through here and using my H-polish brush and my clay buildup brush and clay tubes or whatever, and trying to get everything. Let's go back to my clay brush here. Like I said, H-polish, hold down Alt to sculpt up to a surface, let go of Alt, sculpt down to a surface. Clay tubes to kind of build up, or like I said, clay brush, or even masking. Where's a good example for masking? Oh, on the boots, we're doing boots. So go through there and make this as beautiful as you want, and then eventually I'm going to start splitting these pieces off into their own subtools to make it a little bit easier to manipulate. Another thing is the boots. So if we want to make a pair of boots, we got the boots mesh duplicated off. So if I go again, Shift Z, snap this back. This, if I go into solo mode here, let's say this is about where I want my boot line here. So I'm actually going to do, we can probably just do one boot. So Control Shift, knife curve over. Oh, I forgot we have a layer. Bagel. So we can just, whoop, the opposite direction. There we go. And you know what, get rid of this one too. So Control Shift, select rectangle, hold down Control Shift Alt, geometry, modify topology, delete hidden. And here is our boot. Yay. Now, just like we did before, I'm probably going to inflate this boot because the boot's going to be bigger than the foot. I'm going to go in here to Dynamesh, just Dynamesh this result, and go through here and smooth this out. And this is the beginning of the boot. Now, I do have on my YouTube channel, if you type in boot or shoes, or hell, even my ArtStation page, I have a whole section devoted to boots. Here's a boot tutorial. It's got an image and 18 videos. And then also, even just on my YouTube channel, if you just type in shoe, there's all sorts of, you know, we made a pair of Nike Jordans and, I don't know, Bebop and Rocksteady, or which one's the Warthog? His shoes we made. And then I think just a generic pair of, yeah, those things. So anyway, there's some more stuff on there. Oh, also, if you're doing stylized stuff, Mario, we go through and we do a cool pair of Mario shoes. So this is a good one. And then also, who else did we make? It was a stylized, damn, I forgot what it was. That's good enough. This one is also a pretty decent one, I think, if you want to make your own Mario. We've done a fair amount of stylized stuff. So, and you know, making those boots is basically just like I have right here, two spheres, merge them together, slice the bottom off, put a cylinder in the top, and then you're basically done with those shoes. It goes pretty fast. So kind of the same deal with this too, though, is if we're just making a shoe, we can go through here and we're going to inflate the foot out, and that's going to give us a basic shoe shape. If we start sculpting through and then control drag, you're going to see, oh no, what happened? Make sure if you're sculpting through with a very thin mesh with a very big brush, you go in here to auto masking and you turn on backface masking. I have a hotkey set to that, so any brush I turned on, if I go to my clay tubes, I can just hit Alt F, which is my backface masking. Don't even need this open. I have a little indicator in my interface, custom interface here, to set that up. Speaking of, because now we are starting, it's not advanced or anything, it's still pretty basic, but we are getting into stuff where you need to go and watch instructions. This intro to ZBrush playlist down here, if we say custom brushes, here, video 42, custom interface and menus. So check this playlist out and then I'll get you set up in custom land. So anyway, yeah, turn on backface masking, sculpt this through, control drag, and we basically have our boots started. So boots tend to be here, it'll have a toe that comes out, and then this will scoop around, and then this will scoop back in. So kind of do something like this. That's the basic boot shape, right? I like to do a quick big old H polish brush on the bottom, and that'll kind of flatten that out for me. You can also do a control mask pin, control alt, move. We can Z scale. Z scale down. Jeez, my brain is gone. It's toast. So Z scale down, control drag again. Now, if you are getting these little sections here, let's fix that a little bit, because I did an H polish and kind of dragged it down and made it very thin. So this is where I probably would go through and say, hey, give me a nice clean line right at the bottom of the shoe, and then I'll go through here and be like, hey, this actually needs to be a little more shoe-like here. So again, we're just thinking about volumes. We're not thinking about details or anything. Just here's the basic shoe shape. I need this a little thicker. Well, when I did that knife brush, it gave me a nice polygroup down here, so I can just drag this down a little bit. Boom, there's the cloth part of my shoe. If I need to do the rubber part of my shoe, I can actually duplicate this off, Control Shift tap that green one, delete hidden. Let's go ahead and do a ZRemesh half, adapt the size down to 0. That's underneath your geometry ZRemesh section. I'm going to do a deformation polish by feature open circle, and then just ZRemesh half, half, half. In fact, we could even flatten this out. Just again, Z scale here. And then if you did want to start with something a little simpler, we'll go in here to ZModeler brush, hover over a face, Q mesh, polygroup all. We'll pull this down, and now we've got a rubber sole that we can kind of start with. We can also go in here. Sorry, I'm moving fast, but only got an hour left. Crease PG. Dynamic, crease level of 2, smooth subdiv of 3. This is all kind of part of the basic ZModeler stuff. So back in that thing I just sent y'all, right in here, intro to ZBrush, ZModeler polygon actions, and then also subdivisions increasing. These videos 32 through 35 get you caught up on exactly everything I just did. And there's our basic boot here. Now granted, this boot needs to go over this foot, right? So I'm going to go in here to transparency mode, hold down control, go in here to mask lasso. Oh, here's a trick. So if you caps lock off, standard brush. So while we're zoomed in and we're using our mask lasso, you'll see it does, you know, it's fairly tight mask. You can hold down control and tap and blur that out, but you can also zoom way out and then use this control drag over, and it'll actually give you a pretty big gradient. Now, just like we mentioned before at the very beginning of this video, we don't need LSIM monitor because we're only using one. So I can hold down, if I view a uniform scale, it's going to want, let's hold down Alt and put our gizmo right in here. If we do a uniform scale, it's going to scale X, Y, and Z. However, if we hold down Alt and just scale in the Y direction, it'll scale in those other two axes. You can kind of thicken things up like that. Just as a way to kind of get things done kind of quick here. So here we've got our boot. And then now, again, just using your boot reference, let's reset this. There we go. And again, we're just kind of blocking it in. We're going through here and we're kind of sculpting in, you know, where the where the wrinkles might be, and also any details. I want to say like there's a whole front section that has information, and then along the back here, I think it's got, we can go through here and we can do like, hey, let me, ooh, that's another thing too. I'm just kind of dialing in detail, so I don't mind just going in with my Damien standard brush or my shaky hand and just doing whatever. If you are working a little more controlled, you could go through here and say, let's grab our mask. Nope. Let's grab, there we go. Let's grab our mask here. Control tap to blur that out, control tap to invert. And then you can go through here. You can go to the side and just kind of move this out. You can also hold down Alt and you can just kind of pull along that mask. That moves along the surface normal when you hold down Alt with the move brush. I'll just move out. Now, granted, we don't have a ton of resolution on here, so it's not going to be a great mask here. Let's see, Alt. There we go, Alt to the right. That's what I'm looking for. Same thing for the mask on the back. You can just mask and unmask, and then again, just hold down Alt while you're using the move brush, and it'll pull along here. Again, this is more stuff we'll do when we're doing our final stuff, but that's another way. So we've got our shoe blocked out. We've got our suit blocked out. We don't have any gloves. That's about it. So I'm going to skip ahead. Let's see what else we got in here. While I'm loading up these files. Skin details, yeah, go back in the video, and we mentioned, I have a video from YouTube that'll take you through how I transfer the scan data onto my CC mesh. Yeah, hard surface we talked about. Cool, excellent. To render a project in any other program or in ZBrush, do I need to merge all my subtools in order to hide seams between them, or is there another way to hide them? You can, so that's, oh, here we go. So here's our block out. Yay, we're all done, right? So here's all the pieces. It's all blocked in. All of these are just block out as well. There's nothing fancy going on with these. They're just basically proxy shapes. We can talk about how I made that. Yeah, so there's our boots. And that's exact, I mean, I spent 20 more minutes looking at reference and kind of dialing in the details, but that's about it. Oh, one thing I did do. So these amazing wrinkles, I would love to tell you that I just am an awesome cloth sculptor and I did this. I went into Marvelous Designer and I just threw on a shirt and a pair of pants. And then, ooh, on my channel, we can talk a little bit more in depth about this, but basically here's here's my shirt and pants that I made. It was just a button-up shirt. I really didn't care. I'm just looking for basic wrinkle information I can just kind of start with. And then I hold down Control. I Control tap that point in history to store those vert positions. And then on my, and then we can just hide that. And then back here on my suit here, let's say we didn't have, again, we're just working on the block out. We've gone through, I did actually go through, let's talk about that. That Dynamesh we had, I went through and sliced and then ZRemeshed and project the details back. So let's talk about that real quick because that's important. Hold on just a second. Shift Z intensity. I'm going to recreate that. I totally forgot. So this is about what my suit would look like just using ZBrush, something like this. You know, it's got my noodle legs, noodle arms, my details built in. I don't have any subdivision history, but I do have a Dynamesh, let's say, and through this Dynamesh, I'm going to go through here, hold down Control Shift and slice, and I will slice through my mesh here to determine, hey, ZRemesher, when you go and rebuild this geometry for me nicely, give me a edge loop right through that polygroup here. So you go through, I sliced through the shoulder, I knifed off the head and the bottom of the feet here, and then I said, where's my details at? So these are the detailed parts of the body. I'm going to Control click this point in history, and then I'm going to say ZRemesher half, keep groups, smooth groups down to 0 for everybody following along. Geometry, ZRemesher half, keep groups, smooth groups down to 0. The depth of size down to 0. The reason smooth groups is down to 0 is I've sliced through, it's already smooth. So if I say ZRemesher half, oh, you don't even have to do half. Like it's going to go from 117 down to like whatever half of 117 is, 51,747, or something like that. So here we're getting slightly lower res geometry, but we're losing our detail, right? Not a big deal. We can definitely get that back. Also, if there's any holes showing up, let's go in here to Geometry Modify Topology, close holes. That was weird. Anyway, so we have our mesh here. Instead of doing half, you could just say, hey, drop my target polygon count down to 14. There we go. That'll give you this. And you'll notice wherever we sliced, it'll put an edge loop right down in there. So I'm just going to go, let's go half again. Oh, and also we don't have to do adaptive down to 0. We can do adaptive like 17. That'll build in edge loops. But basically here is my slightly more manageable mesh. And then I've stored those points in history. When I control clicked those points in history, my concept mesh was, those vert positions were stored. So now I can go in here to project history and get my details back. Control D to subdivide. Now when I do that, it's going to kind of melt where those polygroup borders are. So I like to do a quick geometry crease PG. And now when I hit Control D, it'll maintain those edges. And then just do a project history. Control D, I'll do it for y'all. Project history. Control D, project history. So now I have subdivision history. I have my details back. And now I can have a little bit of an easier time going through here and sculpting geometry because I can drop down to like subdivision level 2, work on my primary folds here, and then go up to subdivision level 3 and work on a little more detailed folds. And I can also go in here to say my pinch brush, go in here to elasticity, simulation iterations, and then I'll turn off X symmetry. I can go through here and I can use this to simulate cloth, or BCK is my cloth hook brush. And if I just use this, it's going to push my geometry around as if it's all made of cloth. But you can go in here to say thick skin, turn that on, dial in some thickness, and now you can basically just kind of push the cloth around and kind of pinch things together, and that'll kind of dial in some wrinkles for you as well. Also, remember, I brought in my Marvelous Designer mesh just sitting here, so I can control click here in history. That'll store these vert positions, and then back on my working mesh here, I can go in here to BHR, that's the history recall brush, and I can literally just go through here and sculpt in and down. Oh, I have thick skin turned on, so it's only allowing me so much leeway, so I'm going to turn thick skin off, and now I can go through here and I can project those wrinkles onto my concept suit. There we go. So now, instead of, going through and remeshing because I don't really care about all of the Marvelous stuff, I just needed to, some of those wrinkles in some of those areas, right? So I'm just going to transfer those wrinkles to my working mesh and make it a little bit nicer for me. So here we are, transferring the wrinkles. And then again, because I have subdivision history on here, let's see, are we at no, we're not even at the highest. Probably I want to be at the highest to get the highest amount of detail from our wrinkles here. And this is camera based, so you want to keep moving your camera around while you're brushing, so you're brushing straight down. If you're going at an angle and you're trying to brush these wrinkles, it's going to shear. So look straight down at the object and project straight back to your scan data or to your Marvelous Designer, or just get really good at cloth sculpting. And you don't have to use any of that stuff, right? I'm not, so I do what I can. So now we've got that all transferred. And now I can just integrate this. I'll hold down Shift and Smooth. Let's hold down, turn down our Z intensity a little bit. So we'll go through and we'll smooth this a little bit, and then I'll try to integrate these wrinkles a little bit better with what I've got. We got that detail built in. And again, you can go through here and you can use your cloth brushes, your standard brushes, your clay buildup brush, whatever you want to use to, again, enhance these wrinkles or continue these wrinkles and make them work with your suit. And again, this suit is also split up a lot. So there's going to be a lot of little wrinkles and different material properties that are going to change as the material property. This is kind of rubbery up here, and then this is cloth in here, and then the cloth on the belt's a little different than the cloth here. So there's lots of opportunity for a little bit of cloth storytelling while we're working. But there we go. There's our Vault-Tec suit. My cans are hurting my head. So to get back to, do I need to hide my seams? Yeah, this is just block out. This isn't, we'll show you the final in a second. So, in fact, we could, you know what, well, at the very end, we'll just do a little preview. So another thing we can do is, so that basically, as far as seams go, if you were working on this as a separate object, or you had a bunch of Dynamesh objects that were all separately and you wanted to hide the seams for render, what you could do is you could merge all the objects together, boolean them. You can go in here, for example, to the gear icon when you hit W and say remesh by union, or you could dynamesh everything together, ZRemesh the result, project your details back, and then you could just smooth out the seams in between the pieces and have it one solid mesh with no discernible seams. Here, and sorry, let me just get this sized appropriately. Somewhere in this area here. Oh, shoot. It's a product update. Anyway, there's that could be one option for you as far as rendering goes, or you can just paint out the seams in Photoshop. But ideally, if there's not a seam, there's not supposed to be a seam in your model, then you wouldn't build in a seam, basically. And then here's our gauntlets made similar to the same way as the boots. You can go through here and give this a little bit of wrinkle detail. ZModeler this out. Let's talk a little bit about this back here. This here is just basically, if you grab that IMM brush I linked to y'all, I would grab like maybe a cylinder, I don't have a 24 in here, maybe a cylinder 16. Start with this, split mask points, Shift D to turn off dynamic here, X symmetry turned off. I'll just use local symmetry so we can have both of these kind of sitting here. So I want to make this, right? So you could sculpt it. You could go in here and shoot. Let's scale this down here a little bit. So if you wanted to sculpt this result, one thing you can do is I like to go into geometry polygroup, or it's not geometry, tool polygroups, group by normals. That will go through and give you a polygroup on all sides. And then again, like we did earlier, crease PG. And then you can hit D for dynamic. And let's do crease level of, let's keep it at crease level 15. Really, really super sharp. And then if you say, so dynamic is just a preview, right? If you do a dynamic apply, now it's real geometry. And then you can go in here immediately and just turn on, again, if we're just talking blockouts here, let's turn all this stuff off. And I don't usually go in these menus, but since I'm talking about it, let's do it right. Dynamesh, there we go. We can just Dynamesh this result. Always hit no to freeze your subdivisions there. There we go. So now we can go through here. I'm going to turn on X to go into X symmetry. I have LSIM turned on, so it's using the local axis of this object. And then instead of X symmetry, we're going to turn that off and turn on Y, I think, and then radial count. Nope. Maybe Z here. Yeah. So now we have Z symmetry. Oh, you know what? We actually need to use, because it's off at an angle. Let's turn on dynamic. That will use our gizmo as the center point here. So I can go in here, transform, radial count, up to 100 if you want. Go in here to trim dynamic, and then you can go through here and you can just trim, and then hold down Alt with your standard brush or mask, and you can just cut in and do all this type of stuff, right? Me personally, this one is a good candidate. If I undo back to where we just had our object sitting here, this is a good ZModeler candidate. So I'm going to say transform, X symmetry back on, radial symmetry off, and then actually we can just do X symmetry off, doesn't really matter. And turn off the local sim. So what I'm going to do with my ZModeler brush, BZM, I'm going to hover over a face, go into spacebar. We're going to do an inset polygroup all legacy. And then we're just going to pull this in to where it needs to go. And then we're going to pull this in, another inset, and then pull this in to get another inset, and then pull this in to get another inset. So we've got basically what we need, right? And then for this one here, you could just say, Q mesh or extrude polygroup all, and you can just push this back. And then, when you hit D for dynamic, that'll give you a preview, and that's basically what we have so far. However, what I like to do is when I look straight down at this, I want to make a good normal map, or at least give the light a little more to play with here on the form. I want to make this a little more readable. So instead of just pushing this straight back, I'll actually go back in here with another inset, and we'll pull in, we'll just tap Alt to give it a new polygroup, and then I'll say Q mesh polygroup all, and I'll hold down Shift and just pull those back along the surface normal, like this. So now, same thing for this. We'll do another inset. Oops, another inset here, and then push this back. Now this rounded out one here, we can hold down Alt and paint this. Control Shift tap, Control Shift drag. Geometry modify topology delete hidden, and this is where we can go in here to close convex hull with an edge action. So BZM, hover over an edge, spacebar, close convex hull. You can click and pull and drag, and then I'll give you a little nubbin. And then, so for this rounded area in here, you could also go in here to insert, let's make it so you can see it. Insert, multiple edge loops, interactive elevation. You can click and pull and then drag, and then I'll kind of round that top off here. And then I'm also just Control-Shift clicking between those polygroups and hitting Control-W to make it all one polygroup. And then for this big old bevel over here, you could go in here and just do, you know, a bevel edge loop complete as an edge action here. And now you have all your polygroups set up, so you can just go in here and again, crease PG, crease level of maybe 2, smooth subdiv of 3 as a preview, and now you've got something decent to kind of model with. And then you hit Shift D to turn off dynamic, D to turn it back on. And now you don't have to do a bunch of sculpting. You just have something in here you can manipulate a lot easier. So for example, if I wanted to say, go in here to like slide edge loop complete, I can slide these edges around if I want to, or I can say scale polygroup all mesh center. So I can go through here and I can scale this down if I want to, or again, what else? You can even scale an edge loop, I think. Scale edge loop complete, yeah. You know, so you got options. It's easy to manipulate this low res geometry. Yeah, so there's that. Oh, and then for this little wire right here, you know how I probably did that? I'll show you a couple different options. If I was a betting man, I would say what I probably did was duplicate this off. It's going to be a little weird, but bear with me. Let's go into Transparency Ghost. I probably did something silly like going through here. I'm going to mask where I want this wire. A couple different ways to go about this. I'll show you. You could use Z-spheres if you wanted to. You could do a Z-sphere chain, and then underneath, ooh, where is it? Curve stroke, curves helper. You can copy the Z-sphere chain and then get yourself curves along the Z-sphere chain, and then use an IMM curve brush. You could use a straight up IMM curve and just drag it on the mesh. You could use topology brush, but what I did was I hit Control W, Control Shift Tab, delete hidden, oops, delete lower, delete hidden, deformation, polish by feature, open circle, just to tap this, and then zero mesh half, depth size down to 0, keep groups off, and then just zero mesh half, 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 half. So here is my cube, or it's my strip of polygons, right? There is actually, if you go in here to BC, brush curve, flat snap, as well as, I think there was another one in here. Oh, my voice is about to go. Anyway, there's a bunch of options, right? But I'm just going to go in here and we're going to do a Q mesh polygroup all. I'm going to Q mesh this out to make it generally square. And I'm going to hold down Alt. And I'm going to tap these edges here. And you know what? I'm actually going to Alt tap this one and pull it through. I'm going to get rid of those little, there we go. And then Alt tap here. So now if I do a, let's grab this. I basically want the end polygroups and this polygroup here. So now if I do a crease PG and hit D for dynamic, there we go. I've got a basic wire, and then I can go in here to my deformation, inflate, and deflate and give myself a wire. Alternatively, if you wanted, if I back this up, you could say, hey, I'm zero meshing this, and now I've given myself a path. So this is a way you can kind of control your curves. So I'm going to say delete hidden. Say delete hidden. If I want to smooth this out, I can go through here and we can do like a polish by feature. Again, close circle here. I'm going to hover over one edge with my ZModeler brush, polygroup, polyloop. So we've got a polygroup border, right? We can use that. We can go in here to stroke, curve functions, turn on polygroups with frame mesh, BC brush curve tube. We can go in here and just tap right along here, make our brush size a little smaller, tap to update that brush. If you want it to be embedded on that object, you can go in here to brush depth. You can drag this down and then tap to update, and then I'll push it down. And there we go. Now we've got a tube framed along that path that we created. So we can tap away from that to get rid of that curve. We could do a subtool split mask points or visibility high point delete. We'll just say split mask points. And then you always have that curve you can go back to, and you can reframe this or do whatever you want to with it. So we'll say delete, delete this, and now we have, let's turn off dynamic. yoink. And then this curve here. Yeah, probably something like that. So we'll turn everything else back on, like so. Yeah, so let's go. Let's see what this one has. Okay, let me get caught up. Sculpted version was faster, but you have a manual retopologize later. You just ZRemesh. You could do either one. It depends on what you're making. So I'll show you ZRemesh options, and then the manual retopologizing is kind of just Z-spheres or topology brush. Tell what is 3D model optimization and materialize magic. 3D printing software. I don't know. I've never used Materialize Magic. Sorry about that. So let's see. I've done a fair amount of 3D printing, but it's all Lychee Slicer. Okay, so this one, oh no, I've gone too far. This one's already got all the pieces already split out. But you can kind of see, here's my concept, and then I went through and I basically split all these pieces off and reprojected their detail so it could be easier to go through and do really, really nice controlled seams and then be able to have different material IDs on here, you know, and basically just kind of go through here and do that. Also, these pieces here are just very simple ZModeler with a little bit of booleans, so we'll talk about that as well. Let me see what else we have in here. Yeah, same thing with this one. Well, let me go back one then, because we need to talk about how I split this up. Give it a second. There we go. So splitting this up. So we have our concept here, and I want to go through, again, spend as much time as you need to get the information where it's needed. But then I just basically went through here piecemeal. And this admittedly took a while, but basically, you know, this piece up here, I want it to be a different material. So I'm going to go through and I'm going to split this off into its own subtool, and I'm going to project all the details back. So I'm going to go through here and I'm going to do a mask just around the border. So here, this mask all the way through, like so. And in my interface, my custom interface, so here's the mask around the border. I have an analyze region and a fill region. For y'all, that's going to be down here underneath masking. You're going to see analyze region. I can control mask inside here and say fill region. It'll go ahead and fill that for me, so I don't have to spend a ton of time in there. So now I've got this whole piece blocked out. So I'm going to go ahead and say duplicate this entire mesh off. I'm going to control tap this point in history. I'm going to hit Control W to make this all one polygroup. Control Shift Tap to isolate it. Geometry Modify Topology, delete hidden. Here we'll say, you know what? I was actually on delete, Subdivision level 4, delete lower. Actually, no. Subdivision level 5, delete lower. And then I did a then Geometry Modify Topology, delete hidden. Then I did a reconstruct back down. I don't remember why I did that. Trying to remember. Sorry. Anyway, whatever you want to do, it's fine. Basically, you just want this piece of the geometry here that you can split off into its own object. Now, I do have some. I'm probably going to work on one side and then the other. So turn off X symmetry, Control Shift drag, Control Shift A, and then Geometry Modify Topology, delete hidden. And then I would go through here and just to kind of clean this up a little bit, Control Shift, go in here to slice, and then say, hey, this is actually part of the collar. So I'm going to go through here and just kind of slice, and then do a quick delete hidden. Go through here and just kind of clean up these edges a little bit, like so. Not imperative. I'll show you how you can clean up the edges if you don't want to do that. But if you're not worried about your detail, you can just go into Deformation, Polish by Feature, Open Circle, and then just tap, and that'll smooth out your edges and your details. Which in this case is actually okay. If you did want to save those, you can go in here to your masking. You can just say mask your open border, maybe grow mask a little bit, Control Tap to invert, and then you could do your deformation, polish by feature, and that'll just smooth those edges out. The reason I'm doing this is so Well, actually, this is going to be a two-parter. These ridges up here, I don't care about maintaining my details or getting the detail back. So I'm going to hit Control W, make it all one polygroup, and we're going to say right here, I want this to be a separate object because we're going to go through and make those little rubber separator things, right? So we're going to say split hidden, and then we'll Alt tap here. So now this piece here, I want to be a separate object. And again, you know, go through here and clean this edge up a little bit if you want to. But now I'm going to go ahead and polish this down. We're going to say ZRemesh half. And I have those points stored in history from earlier, so I can always at any time go back here to project history while I'm ZRemeshing half and projecting history, and then ZRemeshing half and projecting history. So get this down to something manageable, and then I'll go through here with my ZModeler brush. Don't do QMesh. If you do a QMesh on an object like this, it'll tend to snap these pieces together. It's just a feature of QMesh. I switch over to extrude polygroup all, pull this down. It's going to flip my verts. That's okay. Display properties, flip. We'll do another crease PG, and then I'm going to Control Shift tap the green part, project history. Control D, Control Shift tap to bring everything else back. Control D to subdivide, which is just geometry divide. Control Shift tap the green, project history. Control D, Control Shift tap, project history. Control D, Control Shift tap, project history. So now I have my details back. I have, this is a separate panel for my clothing, and now I can move these panels together and have a little easier time. This piece up here, I'm going to treat it a little different. I don't care about the wrinkles. I don't care about the detail. What I do care about, and I don't care about this part here because this is part of the collar, or part of the yellow here. So slice brush, right? Control Shift drag, use your space bar to move it around. Alt tap twice to do hard angles, Alt tap once to do like Bezier curves. So this, I'm just going to tap once, space bar to move it around, Control Shift tap, delete hidden. So now I want to go through here, and wherever I have my little bumpy raised edges, I'm going to go through here. I'm going to say, you get to be a rubber piece, and you get to be a rubber piece, and you too, and you also, and you, and you. ZRemesher half, keep groups, smooth groups down to 0. Maybe do that a couple times. There we go. And now I want to add thickness to this. You could ZModeler this. You could go extrude all polygons and pull this back and display properties flip and just do it manually. Also, you could go down here to edge loop, panel loops. You can hit panel loops. So now, if you've been noticing, I've been doing polish by feature, open and close circle. If I do close circle and polish by features, it's going to try to maintain my volumes. If I do open circle and polish, it's going to ignore my volumes and just polish the hell out of my object. Same thing with this. If I do panel loops with polish, I don't really need to lose any volume here, so I'm actually going to turn polish off and then just panel loops. Now I do want them a little bit thicker than that, so I'm going to turn up my thickness, and that'll start giving me some thickness, but you're going to see it starts to thicken out. If I'm sculpting on here and this is the outer bounds of what I want this to be on, I'm going to change this elevation to -100, so now when I panel loops, it'll only go inwards, right? Also, we have double turned on. If I turn double off and do a panel loops, that's going to stick all these together. So now when I hit D for dynamic and then shift to smooth, they're like seat cushions, right? There you can go through here and you can just smooth. If I turn on double and hit panel loops, now it's got a front and a back. And if I grab, hold down Control Shift, grab a little piece of this, Control Shift A, it's going to be its own self-contained little loop here. And you're also going to see it has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 subdivisions. That's here your 5 loops, and also that bevel profile. That's the profile it builds in. So if you want more information on this, I think I've got quite a few. Panel loop presets. Oh, maybe I don't. I thought I had more information on panel loops, but hard surface excerpt, slice modifiers. Boy, those get old, huh? I probably talk about it in that video, but anyway, Google it. You'll find better people than me talking about it. So in this instance, what I ended up doing was, let's go back. So here's our sliced mesh, nice geometry. Well, decent geometry. We can go in here to panel loops. I'm going to turn loops down to 1 thickness. If we do panel loops, if you want to make this bevel less, you can go in here and turn this bevel down to 0, and that'll give you the panel loops. And then when you hit D for dynamic, you're going to see, oh, okay, when it subdivides, you'll start to see those loops. Also, another thing you do is crease PG. That'll crease your polygroup. So when you hit D for dynamic, you could do like crease level of 1, smooth subdiv of 2 or 3, and that'll start, making this. Oops. Did I get rid of that? Panel loops, crease PG, crease level of 1, smooth subdiv of 2 or 3. There you go. So now you could do that, or you can go in here and shift and smooth, whatever you want to do. So again, we'll go back. We'll say loops of 1, thickness, blah, 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 bevel, panel loops. Here we'll hit D for dynamic. Oops, we panel loops twice, didn't we? Panel loops. D for dynamic, just to give us a preview. There we go. So now we've got these little rubber things here. I'm going to go in here and do a deformation inflate a little bit, or maybe just a little manual inflate with the inflate brush. So B-I, etc. N. So we'll go through here. We can do like a little inflate along here. So this is how I separated out the rubber here and the rubber here on the side. Load up another file. Advice on sculpting someone's likeness, like their face. Yes, go back to the video you're on right now. Go back about an hour. Sorry, yeah, every second being filled is doing a number on my voice here. I think I can make it another 30 minutes. Is there a way to increase the size of a subtool by a specific percentage? Like if I have a male key and I want to make the male 4% bigger. Yeah, I want to say... What is it? ZBrush plugins. I want to say they got something for that. Quick scaler. Enter a percentage, millimeter value, or value to increase and decrease the scale. So download this. Throw it into... If you're on a Windows machine, it will be... C, program files max on ZBrush 2024, Z startup, Z plug 64. You're going to throw the data folder and the Z script in here, and then when you restart ZBrush, it'll be right here in your Z plugin file. If you're on a Mac, have fun playing Oregon Trail. That's all I got for you. And I feel like they have layer depth ring utility. I thought they had something else in here. Gizmo swapper. IMM draw size. This one also, if you want to set the IMM draw size to a specific millimeter for your key registration, and even precision extract. Precision move, millimeter value of the subtool and desired axis. Yeah, so all of those plugins probably come in handy if you're doing this type of thing. If you're doing a hard surface and there's too many wobble shapes, do you have a trick to clean them one, or is there like a trick? Yeah, so if you're sculpting a hard surface shape, let me see. This here, so here's the vaguely finished suit. And this stuff here is just, simple ZModeler stuff. We'll talk about booleans here. This is all just ZModeler. Again, there's nothing real complex in these designs, which I love. Thank you, Bethesda and Fallout. We got the Walton Goggins likeness on here. He has his textures all applied and stuff. There's a little bit of cleanup we need to do. But we'll go ahead and turn that off here. And then, so as far as like hard surface modeling, let's say instead of ZModelering something like this, I wanted to go through and do this manually and sculpt it, right? And I might do that, if I'm just trying to figure something out really quickly. So let me just do this real quick. You know what I'm probably going to do? I'm going to duplicate this off. We can work in symmetry. I'm going to say go to Unmesh Mesh Center. Let's do this. Let's Alt Tap here. I'm going to go to Unmesh Mesh Center. Then I'm going to hit this Home key without Alt held down. That's going to put it right in the center of the world. And then I'm going to just rotate this around so that it's generally where I want it to be. Okay, so if I turn on my floor here, I can do geometry modify topology mirror and weld across the x-axis. Delete lower. Ugh. Yeah, close enough. So let's say this is something I would want to kind of go through and sculpt. So one way I can do that, let's actually just move this up real quick. Yoink. If we append a cube here and go out of solo mode. Sorry. That's what I wanted. So we've got a cube here. And this is going to be the shape I'm going to end up making. So I'm going to go through here and we're going to make it about yay sized. And again, we're just going to go right into Dynamesh here. Now, while I'm working, I might keep, I don't know, when you're doing hard surface stuff, I might say, like if you're doing organic stuff, it's like, hey, keep your Dynamesh super low. You want to work on your primary and secondary volumes first, and then get your details and maybe subdivide and ZRemesh and ZProject. If I'm doing hard surface stuff, sometimes it's just like get something decent in there. If you want to see this type of kind of sculpting modeling in action, somebody brought up Kiosk Masons earlier. They're great. You can check out their stuff. Also that hard surface doc I sent earlier. For this type of workflow, I feel like, oh my gosh, what is it? You know what? Let's go to my ArtStation page. I think that one is a little more nicely organized. Or at least easier for me to see stuff. So if I go in here to like this bison, there's a ton of hard surface stuff I have on here, but this is like a very slicey, dicey workflow here. Yeah. So yeah, starting out with a Z-Zoo just to get my volumes and my shapes, and then going in here and doing slicing and ZRemeshing and bridging, and then some new brushes that were introduced going through here, and then again just knife curve and clipping, and just basically it's not a ton of sculpting per se, but using slicing and masks and stuff to keep a nice sharp edge, and then ZRemeshing that result to get you eventually something that looks like this, you know, it's nicely built. And then actually this is actually, as far as ZBrush hard surface sculpting goes, it's fairly lightweight. You know, it's all ZRemeshed and stuff, so it's not terrible. But you can also manually go in and rebuild it with like Z-spheres and stuff like that. So in this instance, what we could do is, again, we're just looking at our major forms. We're going to go through here and we're going to say knife curve, and we're going to say, you know, knife curve this back here. And this is giving us polygroups on all sides here. And then on this side here, what we could do, we could use a knife curve or a clip curve, but also we can go in here to BBA, bevel arc, and then make a big old brush, and then click one side and then the other, and then just brush back and forth. So this is kind of a little bit of a sculpting thing that'll give you a little bit of control. And then to pull this out, you know, this will be kind of this thin, and then you want to pull out this bottom part here. This probably just be a mask. So mask this, and then you can alt tap the back here and then just pull this forward. Is it great? No, but it's representative enough to where I could go through and make any changes I want. So if you insist on just sculpting these things and not, let's mask the back here, and not ZModelering it, you can get pretty far pretty quick, you know, for, you know, what you want to make. However, eventually you might want to go through and say, hey, I'd really love to rebuild this. Well, in this instance, what I might do is, let's just undo back to where we just had our primary forms, and then I can try and use ZModeler. So let's go through here. I'm going to do a quick group by normals underneath your polygroup menu. I'm going to make this, yeah, actually we'll keep that polygroup there. So now, again, if I got my primary volume here, I can go ZRemesh half, depth size down to 0, keep groups, smooth groups down to 0, and then we can just ZRemesh this result, and this will give us something we can start ZModelering with. If it starts going a little bit crazy, one thing you can remember is really all we need is this blue part, because we can just extrude back, right? So just Control-Shift-Tap, delete hidden, W or Alt-Tap, Z-scale this, and then go right back in here and do an extrude, flip, and then you're kind of right back where you started. We can hold down Alt and we can paint this here as one polygroup. Let's do that again. Yoink, and then tap Alt to give you a new polygroup, and then even here, we'll give that a new polygroup here. So again, ZRemesh half, keep groups, smooth groups down to 0. And then if we wanted to pull out something, we can just hold down Alt and then just mark these here. And then we can just say extrude polygroup all. We just pull this out. Now, granted, this is not great, right? But we can just mask this. And again, how I went about that main primary shape, you could be more controlled and, you know, just ZModeler that basic shape. It's a very simple shape, so you don't have to, like, you know, slice and ZRemesh or anything like this. I'm just showing you, based on what the information we had earlier, this is how I would do it. And heck, even if you wanted to, let's even try this. I didn't do this, but let's give it a shot. We could even go in here to slice rectangle and say, you know what, let's get a, well, first, let's do this. Let's hold down Control Shift, and I'm going to get rid of the back here. So when I slice through, it's not going to do a double slice here. So something, I don't know, if we wanted to put in a shape like this, let's say. Let's try ZRemesh same, keep group, smooth groups down to 0. Double. Sometimes you need to throw more geometry at ZRemesher. That's not too terrible. And then at this point, you go in here and say, like, inset polygroup all. So you're kind of using ZModeler. You're kind of using ZRemesher to kind of do some heavy lifting for your primary volumes. Not how I went about this. I literally went through, let's see, I just kind of trying to show you the sculpting masking method. But again, this shape is so simple that I went through and just used ZModeler. This is all for baking. But yeah, just ZModeler, pull this out. I didn't even bother building this in. That's another thing too, is you can use booleans to do a little bit more complex shapes. So this is a good example of that. Let's steal this one, duplicate this, and we'll say W home. Shoot it down to the bottom here. So let's talk about booleans and hard surface modeling. So here's a shape here, append. Let's append a cube here. So here's a trick. You have a cube, and notoriously, cubes in ZBrush are set up to have some functionality where you end up with polarized caps on the end here. So if you go down here to initialize, after you've made a polymesh 3D, you can go here initialize and you just make it a Q cube, and you can even say 1, 1, 1 Q cube. It'll give you a nice simple cube. Alternatively, if you've already got the shape dialed in, you can use ZRemesher and just say detect edges. Depth size down to 0. We'll say half. It'll go through and rebuild based on your volumes. It'll find your edges, increase them for you. Then you can hit Control D a couple times, delete lower, and now you've got a nice evenly distributed mesh for all your whatever you want to do. So now if I want to poke holes through here and then also rebuild this, what I would do is, again, that brush I posted earlier, I would grab that brush here. Let's go in here to like cylinder 32, pretty decent res. I'm going to pull out a cylinder in here. I'm going to say split mask points to split it into its own subtool here. If we turn on transparency, we're going to poke a hole right through here. I'm going to control drag out a copy, and then I'm going to turn off X symmetry and get rid of that one, delete hidden, and then we'll just move this one into the middle here. So now I have things being poked through this thing. Now, before I go through and Boolean this, I'm going to do a, let's make it so you can see it. I'm going to do a polygroup, group by normals. I want polygroups on everywhere I want it to go and look and put edges where I want them. I want a polygroup. You could do the same thing here. Yeah, you could do a group by normals, but since these things go all the way through the object, I really don't need that. However, if they didn't, let's do both. These I'm going to have go all the way through the object. This one, I'm going to have go halfway through the object. We'll show you the difference. But I want polygroups on all the major sides when I do that, and I'll show you why in just a second. So here's our basic shape that we want to make. I'm going to move this square up above, and then these Boolean options, I'm going to go in here and turn on subtractive, then turn on live Boolean. So now, if I go to solo mode here, and that is live Boolean, turn off transparency. There you go. So now we have what's going to look, this is going to go halfway through, this is going to go all the way through. If you want to reposition these, you can. It's just, it's live Boolean. It's just a preview. So you turn live Boolean off, there's your objects. But if you like what you see, we can go through here and we can say Boolean. Well, another thing too I might want to do is you can hit D for dynamic, and you're going to see, oh no, if I go in here, it's averaging those verts. Remember, you can go in here to crease PG and crisp those up. So That'll keep it nice and creased. That'll give you a nice round, smooth surface, no aliasing built in, because ZRemesher will build in aliasing. So we're going to go through here and we're going to say dynamic subdivision because we're using it, make boolean mesh. That's going to throw out a U mesh here. Oops, I had this other thing showing. I don't need that. Sorry. Delete hidden. This is the result you'll get. Is it great? Yes, except, you know, all these triangles. And if you don't need to worry about that, you just want to render this, go for it. If you want to rebuild this and it's symmetrical across the x-axis, you can turn on X symmetry, ZRemesh half, depth size down to 0, keep groups, smooth groups down to 0, ZRemesh. It'll go through and rebuild it. Now, I didn't put this exactly symmetrical, so that's probably where it's stumbling a little bit. So I'm going to turn off X symmetry and then just ZRemesh this result. And because we have keep groups and smooth groups down to 0, it's going to keep our polygroup. So this whole back polygroup here, it kept, and then it's putting edges exactly where all my polygroups are. And you can keep hitting half. So ZRemesh half, see how low you can get if you want. You can also go through here if you want to recap this. Just Control-Shift-Tap, Control-Shift-Drag, Geometry Modify Topology, delete hidden, hover over an edge, close convex hole, boop, close convex hole, Control-W. And so now you can go in here and say crease PG, crease level of maybe 1, smooth subdiv of 2 preview. You got a nice mesh here that you can go through, and you can still ZModeler on this, right? It's just so inset polygroup all legacy. You can go in here, and then, you know, Q mesh, hold down Shift, and then get rid of this one, delete hidden, go back in with a close convex hole, click and pull and round this out. Control-Shift-Tap, Control-W. You know, you're getting all your polygroups, you're getting some ZModeler stuff in. You could use Mesh Fusion if you wanted to. Yeah, so anyway, that's how you can use booleans and ZRemesher to kind of go through. And even this shape here is just, it's a shape sitting on top of it. I really didn't put a whole lot of thought or effort into that, but you can see it's pretty simple. See, reconstruct, and I even put these things back here. Reconstruct. Yeah, so it was basically just this. Surprise, surprise, right? So yeah, I think that's it. Let me see. Polyframe here. We're doing pretty good on time. Here's the end result of all of our mushing stuff around. All of these little panel pieces here, you know, obviously we had our wrinkles sculpted. I went through here with like an inflate along here, maybe a little clay buildup for the seam along here. Again, this collar is a separate piece that just popped off, but y'all know how to do that now. Oh, the zipper right here is just from, let me move it out so you can see it. Yoink, yoink. There we go. There's the zipper. So that was just BI brush insert. Where's that at? So here's the zipper plastic. Zipper here. So now if you just use the zipper as is, let me say, yeah, there's no subdivision history. So if you just click and drag, it's a curve brush, so it's going to have a zipper back behind it. All you need to do is go in here to stroke, curve, turn off curve mode, and then it'll just become an IMM brush. Oops, switch this to drag rect. There you go. And now you have just a little zipper you can pull out. And all I really needed was that little top zipper piece. It's not like I'm going to simulate him unzipping his Vault-Tec suit until I get my Patreon, but my OnlyFans. But we can go through here and hold down Control-Shift and switch over to select lasso. And again, if I just need the zipper part, it actually might have, let's do polygroups, auto groups. And then I can just, two ways you can do this. You can go through here and you can say, I just want all this stuff. Grab a loose selection over it, Control-Shift-A, and then you can go through here and get rid of anything you don't need. Or you can literally just go through here and select rec and just say, I want this piece, this piece, this piece, this piece, this piece. Geometry Modify Topology, delete hidden. D for dynamic, crease level of 1, smooth subdiv of 2. Boom. There you go. There's your little zipper. Yeah, sculpt some cloth, sculpt some stuff. 754. Let me just open this real quick. And I'll show you the final result-ish. And then I think we got a few more minutes, and then I'll go through kind of cleaning up some hard surface stuff. Get some more coffee in me. Yay. Actually, scene. Let's go here. Let's put on a little more stage production. Now, I haven't actually updated anything on here, so I don't know how good it's going to be. I need to reposition those teeth, but you can kind of see, you know, some of the wrinkle stuff in action. So anyway, this is why I started with that base mesh. I get all this for free, but you can see the suit and everything's all been baked. Let me see F. There we go. So here's the suit. Here's all the wrinkles. Here's all the different parts. It's all rigged up and weighted and all that good stuff. So the ZBrush process, that whole process, if you want to know more about that process in particular, here's a ZBrush character creator workflow, body pipeline, face tools pipeline here. So you can go, and it's in fact, if just on my home page, scroll down, there's all three of those sections. Here's the ZBrush section right here. So there it is. Cool. Yes. So now, again, we got a few minutes left. So let me go here, delete all. And then hard surface. Do I have something? Yeah, you know what? I can actually load something up that will have something reasonable. Intro. Sample files. Mech helmet progression. Yeah, actually, you know what? Let's go back in time. Let's go back to a really, really early. So, for example, this is how my concept's probably going to start out, right? Just going in here and just getting a basic shape in there. And then I'm going to go through and I'm going to rebuild some of those pieces and refine some of those pieces. Some of it's going to be sculpted, some of it's going to be ZModeler, and then we're going to go and refine these forms. Actually, I think I have a better example than this one. This one's a little too old for my tastes. Female progression. Okay, so here's an example. No, this is all, some of this is sculpted. Hold on just a second. Let me find bird robot. That might be better. Okay, yeah. Gross. Okay, so here's the concept block out. And then over here, here's the block out kind of refine. And then here's the pieces I want to separate. Here's the refine form. And if you go to the hard surface doc I sent out earlier, damn, I don't have it. Oh yeah, I do. If you want to follow along and do your own, that's the Jonas Rosinas ArtStation here. He's got a video on how to do this, basically. And this is just me kind of following along. And then here is my concept mesh at the end of the day. And again, it's just sculpted. There's some ZModeler stuff. There's some IMM stuff, Kitbashy stuff, and then there's some sculpting stuff. But none of it's rebuilt. It's all just kind of placeholder. And then also, if you're so inclined, you could draw over it. Man, I can't find nothing. So for example, here's what we're just talking about, right? And then once you have your concept all drawn out, you could go into, you know, whatever program you like to use to draw, and then you could just go through and just start drawing over it. You know, you've got perspective built in, you got some shadows built in, you've got all your volumes built in, and then you can go up and, you know, use your line weight and just kind of go through and call out any details or any parts that you want to continue drawing, and just go through. So you can go back and forth between ZBrush and, you know, drawing, and then lock it down, and then go in here and just kind of use line work or use painting or whatever to figure out where you want to go next, and then bring that in just like we did for the likeness, bring it in as a reference image, line it up, and then use this as a way to kind of just have something you can kind of work from. Now, as far as wobbly shapes, let's go back to this one here. So for example, we've got this piece here. I'm going to say split hidden. Again, this is just our concept form. I'm going to go through here. We'll drag from the resolution slider from our Dynamesh. We'll Dynamesh this result. I'm going to close that out because it's still playing. Oh, well, let's go a little higher than that. There we go. So basically, let's do mirror and weld. We want to refine the shape up here. So you could go through with Z-spheres and just plot out these points and rebuild it. Totally fine. You could go through here and mask and then Z-remesh this result. But if it's not quite to that point where you want to start using low-res geometry, but you do want to start cleaning this up, you can just mask basically where this object is. You can hit Control-W, Control-Shift-Tap, Geometry Modify Topology, or sorry, Subtool Split Hidden. I like to do a quick Geometry Modify Topology close holes. I like to do a mirror and weld after that. Hit W, Control tap that point or that polygroup on the back. Control drag out a little thickness here. Control drag to re-Dynamesh. If you need to clean up any of these stragglers, hold down Shift and turn on Sculptris Pro. You can go through here and just kind of clean up some of these things here. And then you can just go around, Control Shift, and switch this over to like a clip curve. We'll turn off Sculptris Pro. And then you can just start cleaning this thing up. And not just the edges, but also like this. If you want this to be, you know, maybe scoop along here, you can just clip right along here and clip that back. Or from the profile, maybe, you know, this is a little wobbly, so maybe you want it to be like this. Boom. It's a good start, and then you can go back in here with your H-polish brush. I'm going to crank up this resolution just a bit here. So H-polish brush here, and we'll just polish this down like so, and then we'll go in here maybe with our pinch brush. Oops. We still have brushed elasticity turned on. Simulation iterations down to 0. So now I can like pinch along here and pinch this to kind of sharpen it up a little bit. Damien standard to kind of push in. Let's go ahead and, man, let's raise that resolution up. If you max out your resolution, it's still not high enough, turn that to an open circle and then turn this slider way back down because it'll give you more resolution than you can shake stick at. So back here in your move brush, I like to go in here to curve brush, curve, AccuCurve turned on, and then that'll allow you to kind of pull to corners. So that way, just a little bit, because regular move brush will kind of do a blobby move. Move Accu will kind of pull to corners here. And if you're getting wobblies, go through here. I like to use a big old H-polish brush, and you can hold down Alt to polish up and let go of Alt to polish down. You can go through here and again, just kind of use clipping and polishing and trim dynamic to get these, you know, shapes where they need to go. And if you need to pull out to a corner, move Accu. So maybe we want this to like come in a little bit, and then maybe a little trim dynamic through here, and then maybe a little clay brush or clay buildup or clay tubes here, and then maybe a little pull to corner here. So we're slowly going through any wobblies that you might get. Again, you can just use your move brush to alleviate. Doesn't have to be perfect, just has to be representative of where you want to head. And then when you get it to a certain point, you can go in and, like I said, rebuild it with Z-spheres or Max Maya Moto Blender Cinema 4D to draw topology over. You can also use ZModeler. If you go into your comma key here, you can go in here to brush. This will be what I'll leave y'all off on. If you go down here to the ZModeler here, you can go in here to Z-Slicer, Z-Topology. I have those auto-loaded in, so whenever I hit B, let me show you where that is. Again, if you're not playing Oregon Trail on your Mac, you can go into your Windows machine and throw that into ZBrush 2024 Z Startup brush presets. Throw it in here, and then whenever you start up ZBrush, those custom brushes, quote unquote, will be in here. This ZModeler brush, so a lot of people who use ZModeler are like, I wish I could have a hotkey for bevel and edge. Well, you can have, with the ZModeler brush, you have not only an edge option you could set to bevel, you have a face option you could set to something, you have a point option you could set to something. Point option you could set to something. So with that in mind, you could have a whole brush set up for topology. So for example, let's say I want to rebuild a piece of this. So one way you could do that is BTO, topology brush. We'll go through here, and I'm just going to kind of draw. Oh, I still have. Whenever it does that, you probably still have points stored in history it wants to snap to. So Control tap the latest point in history to get rid of those. And then, so now when we draw, it'll actually stick to our surface. So we'll start with something like this. And then if I want just a flat surface, I'm going to take my draw size down to 1, tap on our object, say split mask points. Now we have this piece and this piece. So we have our concept object, and we'll turn on transparency with ghost off, and we'll go to skin shader. So now I can go to my hotkey, ZModeler topology. The edge action is already set to extrude and snap to surface. The point action is set to move and snap, and the face action is set to do nothing. So now I can go through here like a quad draw type thing and just go through and just snap my edges. I can tap Alt if I want to do a whole row. I can hold down Alt if I want to do a bunch, or if I can just, I want to do one, I'll just tap Alt one more time. And then I can go through here and, move this around or move this back, and it'll snap. And I can build my geometry like that. What I'm probably going to do is another option. We'll go ahead and do an insert Z-sphere. On the Z-sphere here. On the Z-sphere, I would go into X symmetry. I would actually use a Z-sphere to plot points and drag that out and then turn that into adaptive skin. If you want more information on that, boy, I gotta have something, right? Let's see. Z-sphere retopology. Yeah, I got a bunch on that. So check those videos out. All right. Thanks, everybody. I might do a follow-up on my channel. Well, the next thing I'll tell you what we're going to do is we got our Walton Goggins. Now we got to do the ghoul. So now that we've already got his face, we just got to take his nose off. And then maybe model some cool stuff for his clothing. So, yeah, we'll do that next. Cool. Thanks, everybody. And see y'all.